Today I'm reviewing a 70 square meter or 750 square foot mid-century apartment in Warsaw, Poland. It's a nice place overall, but they've also made a few mistakes that I want to point out to you. I'm here to maximize your home's resale value through good design, link in the description, but for now, let's take a look inside this apartment. Alright, so in the entryway to this place, you can already tell that the entire vibe of this apartment is a little retro eclectic, and there's a couple of things that stand out right away. First, this burgundy and beige checkerboard tile definitely feels vintage, but not overly vintage in a cheesy kind of way. And given that the apartment's in Warsaw, it just makes so much sense to have a more durable flooring for the entryway, because during those long winters and rainy shoulder seasons, you're going to be tracking snow and rain and mud into the apartment, which you don't want hitting these beautiful herringbone parquet floors. Then the second thing you see is straight ahead, the glass block wall that divides the space but still allows natural light to pour through. Because keep in mind, this entryway isn't particularly wide, and because it's facing the interior of the apartment building, it doesn't get any natural light. So any way they can bring light from other parts of the home into this entryway is a smart move. And by the way, if you've only seen glass blocks in a public swimming pool or a dentist office, they actually date back to the 19th century, and they're a really popular building material today, especially in smaller and more poorly lit apartments. But then you also see this oak veneer cabinet with these tall mirrored doors on the left side, and you're gonna see more of this oak throughout the apartment, so there's lots of material continuity between here and the other rooms. Plus, it adds plenty of storage for outerwear, which is always an issue in smaller apartments. Now, opposite the cabinet, they've got this floating shelf with a couple of small pieces of decor on it, and it was a smart move to include this shelf here, but these decor items are kind of impractical to have sitting here, since this is going to be your drop zone for your keys, your wallet, and anything else that you're carrying in and out of the house. So I love the shelf, but they should just ditch the decor and leave it bare so that they can actually use it. And it would also be really nice to have a downward facing wall lamp above here to illuminate the shelf in the evenings and create this nice moody vibe when you get in from outside. Now, one thing that perplexes me is this stool that we see straight ahead. I mean, why is that there? I guess you could argue it's for putting your shoes on, but then it should be placed in the entryway, not in the hallway where it is now, since that's on the hardwood floors where we don't want our dirty shoes. It kind of seems like it's just in the way there, and I can't really figure out another reason why it would be sitting there. But overall, they've done a nice job in the entryway, and it makes a strong statement without feeling overly busy. But now let's look at the kitchen and dining room. From this angle here, you can see that the same glass blocks that we saw from the entryway are on the right here, which means that the dining room is to the left when you walk into the apartment and the kitchen just beside it. And the first thing that captures your attention in here is this stunning light hanging above the dining table. This is a VP Globe pendant by Werner Panton, and it was designed back in the 60s, and it looks pretty simple, but it's a classic of space-age design. It sits in a clear acrylic sphere with these suspended reflectors that create a layered lighting effect instead of a single glare. And so back in the 60s, alongside materials like plastic and chrome, this was a real symbol of humanity's optimism for the future. Now, the dining table has a smoked glass top and a salmon pink base, which is an interesting choice for this room, but because the base is muted and most of the rest of the room is filled with natural tones, it actually works. Sitting around the table are these chrome cantilever chairs, which are very Bauhaus, and they carry through that 1960s optimism. The creamy brown curtains warm the light coming in from outside and give this diffused glow to the entire dining area, and because they've got floor-to-ceiling windows behind them, this room is going to get a ton of natural light. Now, in the kitchen, we've got mirrored upper cabinets, which do make the space feel larger, but they're also going to be annoying when you're cooking since you'll constantly see a reflection of yourself. And so for that reason, I would have stuck with the same oak that they've got on the lower cabinets and these cabinets on the side. But with that said, they've got this beautiful black forest granite on the countertop and backsplash, which looks so good with the dark oak and the other natural tones throughout the room. The swirling gold and cream veins in the granite just bring this sense of drama to the kitchen, and it looks really, really good. It's a very masculine look in here, but when you combine it with the flowers on the dining table and the chandelier above, it really warms up the space and makes it inviting for both men and women. But let's be honest, this is not a particularly large kitchen. And there's really not a lot of counter space, especially when you account for the fact that they've got a sink and a stovetop built into this little stretch of counter. But still, I'd say they've done a really good job of building in enough storage into a smaller kitchen footprint. The cabinet on the left side here is a huge win, and they've even built in a little pull-out coffee nook to make the space even more functional. So overall, I love what they've done with the kitchen, and the entire room just feels warm and layered, mostly because they've done such a good job of choosing materials that balance each other out instead of competing with each other. Now, the other half of the room here is the living room. And overall, they've done a good job in here too. They've got the same floor-to-ceiling windows as the kitchen and dining room, and these curtains have continued all the way across the space, so there's tons of light in here as well. Now, in terms of furniture, they've got these chocolate leather Ligne Rose Togo sofas that do look pretty comfy, but going with 3 of them in the same room with no other seating options is not the right way to go. I know the intention here is to get people to sit down, relax, and just really sink into these chairs, but not everyone wants to do that all the time. And so if you're gonna have a piece of furniture like that forces people into an unusual seating position, you wanna also have at least one or a couple other options that people can sit in. Because imagine, maybe you're sitting around having coffee or a glass of wine with friends. And sure, some of the time you're gonna wanna lounge back like this, because keep in mind, these sofas really push you back so that you're leaning pretty far backward and have to put in effort to sit up in a straight position. But maybe some of the time you don't wanna sit like that. Maybe you wanna sit upright and read a book, or have a conversation that commands a little more attention and respect than what you can offer in a slouched chair like this. Or what if you invite your 70 or 80-year-old parents over? Maybe they don't want to sit in a chair like this, and maybe they can't sit in a chair like this because getting in and out of it is just too difficult for them. This is the kind of thing you need to think about when you're making furniture decisions, and especially decisions around less common furniture pieces like these sofas. Because the reality is, these are comfortable for some people, but they're very uncomfortable for other people. And you want to be cognizant of that when you choose the furniture for your home. So think about who's actually going to be using your space and make sure the decisions you make are appropriate for them as well, not just for you. I love what they did with the rug here and how it perfectly fits into this room, framing the space and creating a conversation zone in the center of the room. The color is super nice and it matches really well with the red accent in the photograph on the wall and the smoked orange of the coffee table. And just like I said in the kitchen, because the dominant tones in here are natural and neutral, specifically the different shades of brown on the sofas, the sideboard, and the floors, and then the lighter tones of the cream walls, you can get away with having bold colors in other areas because the color is an accent, not the entire palette of the room. But I also want to point out the 2 things they've got in the corners here. The first is Bruno Munari's Falkland floor lamp, which is made from fabric stretched over these metal rings. It's emitting a bit of an orangish light, which probably looks great in the evenings when the natural light coming in these windows fades, especially because the only other light I see in here is from these down lights on the ceiling, which probably aren't the most inspiring. So if they had another lamp on the sideboard under the TV or a few candles on the coffee table, that would really help to add some dimension to the room. Of course, they do have the hanging pendant light over the dining table, which would definitely hit this room as well, but you want to have some kind of layered light in here to give it a nice atmosphere in the evenings. And then the second thing they've got in here is the rubber plant, which also adds some height and along with the lamp, just makes the room feel taller. They've obviously got fairly high ceilings in here as it is, but adding this in here just helps the room feel even bigger and a bit more alive. And so overall, the room feels really well put together. They've definitely made some bold choices, but nothing competes for your attention because nothing is too overwhelming. All right, now as we go to the bedroom, things get a little calmer and softer than we saw in the other rooms. The walls and ceiling are still the same soft cream that matches the curtains, and this wraparound headboard matches the small dresser at the foot of the bed. Now, one thing that looks really good in here are the 2 red pendant lamps, which are also from Werner Panton, which are hanging on either side of the bed with these really nice red cables. And they perfectly match the red velvet curtain inside this arched doorway, which is leading to the walk-in closet. Now, given how narrow the doorway is here, I'm guessing they didn't have enough space to put a full-size door here without sacrificing on space in the closet itself. But they also didn't want to leave it completely open because then if it gets messy in there, it's going to drag down the energy in the room. So instead, by putting this curtain, it adds a bit of a theatrical touch to the room. But overall, this is a pretty small bedroom, and there's not really anything particularly special about it. There's no interesting art on the walls, and there's no interesting pieces of furniture. But with these small accents, like the plant hanging above the bed, the lamps flanking the bed on either side, and the curtain concealing the walk-in closet, they've managed to take a very regular room and make it something that feels a little bit more like home. Now, one thing that they could have done in here would be to add some color to the ceiling, which would add another layer of depth on top of all the cream and white tones that they've got on the bedding, the curtains, the walls, and the ceiling right now. And it would just add a little bit more visual punch. Of course, if you go with a darker color on the ceiling, it is going to make your space feel smaller, but given that the ceilings are already 3 meters high and they've got tons of natural light coming in, plus the fact that this is a bedroom where feeling slightly more cocooned isn't necessarily a bad thing, it's something they could have considered in here. Now, here in the study, they've got a very similar foundation, the same cream walls and ceiling, the same floor-to-ceiling curtains, and the same herringbone parquet flooring. But I've got to be honest, I really like this room. They've got another one of those chrome cantilever chairs that we saw in the dining room, which is set at a really minimal desk next to the window. It's a pretty light work setup, but if you're just doing a couple hours of work on your laptop, it's totally sufficient. And then sitting on the desk is yet another Werner Pantone lamp, this one being the flower pot lamp, which is another one of his renowned works from the 60s. So again, we've just got more mid-century aesthetic infused into this place. Now, some people might think that having a sofa here in the study is unnecessary, but including it is actually a really smart choice, because if there are two people living here and both want to get some work done at the same time, then one will very likely be in here and the other will be using the dining room table or potentially sitting on the couch in the living room. So if the person here in the study just needs to get away from the desk for a few minutes and take a bit of a break, then the only option they would have without this sofa is to go out into the living room, disturb the other person, and break both people's productivity at the same time. But instead, because they've included the sofa here, they can easily take a break without disturbing anyone else. Now, I also love the shelving system they've got in here because it just looks so good with the black metal framing and these dark wood shelves. And having these ribbed glass doors at the bottom is such a good way to hide any objects that you want to store but don't want to see every day. So I really love this combination of open shelving for the things you want to display and fluted glass at the bottom for the items you don't. And then the other pieces that really bring this room together are the cream and black rug and the frosted glass pendant lamp overhead. But I've got to say, for a 70 square meter apartment to have its own study like this is impressive, and it just goes to show how smart of a layout they've got in this apartment. They've already been able to pack in so much, and I'm impressed with what they've been able to do in this space. But now let's talk about the bathrooms in this apartment. And I'm saying bathrooms, plural, on purpose, because they've actually got 2 full bathrooms in this 70 square meter apartment, believe it or not. And the first one is this red bathroom, which is wrapped head to toe in red mosaic tile. I mean, this is very bold from the moment you walk in, and it uses a similar black forest granite to the one we saw on the countertops and backsplash in the kitchen. Now, some of the items in here are pretty small, including the sink, the towel warmer, and the toilet itself, but they still managed to fit a full-size shower in here. And that's important because one problem that's so common in small bathrooms like this is that the layout prevents you from using the space comfortably. But in here, the shower has its own space, the vanity isn't crowded, aside from the sink being on the small side, and there's plenty of space to sit on the toilet as well. So I'm actually really impressed with what they've been able to pull off in such a small space. Now, given the reflection in the mirror here, you can see that there's a wooden floor-to-ceiling cabinet just behind where the camera is taking this photo from, and I'm pretty sure that's the cabinet we saw in the apartment's entryway, which would mean that this bathroom is sitting immediately to your right when you walk in the front door. But that raises the question, is it worth having 2 bathrooms? Well, in my opinion, the answer is yes. Now, if this bathroom had a worse layout where it wasn't possible to fit everything in here that they fit in, then I would say either A, get rid of the shower and just have a comfortably placed toilet and vanity for your guests, or B, remove the bathroom entirely and turn this into a massive coat closet where you can store tons of clothes, which would be a really great asset, especially if there's a woman living here. But given that the bathroom works the way it is, and as far as I can tell, it's going to be comfortable to use, it's great that they've included it. That way, the homeowner gets to keep the master bathroom to themselves, this becomes the guest bathroom, and everyone's happy. So let's look at that master bathroom, which sits on the other side of the glass block wall that we saw when we first entered the apartment. And they've gone with a bold design in here as well, with this chocolate burl veneer all around the vanity. This is certainly a very eye-catching pattern, but you'll get sick of it over time when you see these same swirls multiple times a day for years. It's just too much, and they overdid it here. But with that said, I do like the black forest granite that they're using on the countertop and backsplash here, which is the same as we saw in the kitchen, which creates even more material continuity. I also really like the triple stacked wall lamps they've got on either side of the mirror, which make the space feel really bright and also match the triple lamps they've got on the ceiling. But the burl veneer on the vanity isn't the only bold surface in here, because they've also got this very bright cobalt blue tile all around the bathtub and the same cobalt blue on this triple layered toilet. So I do like the terrazzo finish on the toilet, and they've managed to pull that off pretty well, but with the tile around the bathtub and the burl veneer on the vanity, it's just way too much in this room. They would have been better off choosing either the blue accents or the burl veneer, but not both of them together. Personally, I would have went with the blue and used the same dark oak that we saw in the cabinets in the entryway entryway in the kitchen here on the vanity. That oak, matched with the granite counters and backsplash, would achieve a similar effect as the burl veneer, but without all the movement and chaos. And with that said, if you wanted to scale it back even more, you could keep the blue terrazzo toilet and soften the color on the tiles around the bathtub for an even more minimal look. That would give you a much more classy, timeless looking bathroom that's still got the attention grabber in the toilet, which is giving you the best of both worlds. So what can we learn from this apartment? First, they nailed it when it comes to material continuity. This flat has the same oak throughout the entryway and kitchen, the same granite backsplash in the kitchen and bathroom, the same cream walls throughout most of the apartment, and the same mid-century design language in every single room. And when your base materials repeat like this, it buys you the freedom to take risks in other areas because you're building on such a strong, consistent foundation. Second, there's storage in just about every room here, from the oak cabinets in the entryway, to the storage tower in the kitchen, to the walk-in closet in the bedroom, to the shelving unit in the study. And so every part of this home has dedicated storage built into the walls, which is what allows it to feel so much bigger than it is. So keep this in mind. Storage isn't a piece of furniture, it's a structural decision. And if you make poor storage decisions, then your home will always feel cluttered. And then third, pay attention to layout. This apartment has an exceptional layout that allows them to get 2 full bathrooms, a walk-in closet, and a study in the size of a home that would normally have 1 bathroom, no closet, and no study. And that's possible because they've got all that storage built in, but also because there's almost zero hallway space. So when you're buying your place, you want to spend less time thinking about how large it is on paper, because this apartment is still just 70 square meters, but it offers way more than its square footage suggests. So I'm breaking down a ton of apartments like this one, so make sure you subscribe if you want to see more of these videos. If you want to learn how to evaluate properties like this for yourself, so you get the best resale value on any home you buy or redesign, check the link in the description. And if you want to see another apartment that has the same couch as this one, but a very different layout that causes a few problems, check out this video up here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the comments.